Yes, I am the former CEO of Philips. I know some of you here are in the semiconductor industry. I've also led NXP Semiconductors. Today, I'm on the board of Novartis, which is a gigantic pharma company. And to compensate that size, I'm actually advising and on the board of 3 startup companies in data science and AI, which is absolutely fascinating. And all of them, of course, are involved with making tech work. I'm also the co-founder of a venture fund for university spin-outs, which is also about IDs and making tech work. So I like the theme of this conference. I like it. It emphasizes innovation as well as entrepreneurship. 2 things that are very close to my heart. In fact, throughout my entire career, I've worked on innovation. Early on in banking automation, later on digital consumer, eventually in semiconductors, and then in my last job as the CEO of Philips, embracing health technology. Because that is something where I felt the world has a big opportunity. The common thread, however, is innovation and entrepreneurship. And I dare say I have seen my share of success and failures. In fact, just like David was talking about. And therefore, it is always a learning journey that you need to take with optimism, with curiosity, with confidence, otherwise you will not be on that journey. And from my experience, making tech work is much less about the innovation, it's much less about the product, and much more about the process of putting it into the customer's hands and making it work. So it is more about work and less about tech. But I guess that was already being said here by David. And making things work, when you reflect on it, it is there in everyday aspect of life. Making your marriage work, it's not about a big goal, it is about how do you make it work every day. Or you could even say, how do we make society work? Climate change or geopolitical issues, it's always about people. People who need to figure out how to turn a threat or an opportunity into something that works for them and for their friends and their partners. We tend to talk a lot about what we want to achieve with tech. Sometimes we talk about why we want to achieve that. We don't talk enough about how we want to achieve the big goals that we dream about. To achieve what tech may promise may take years. Think about AI. Actually, AI is 50 years old, and only now are we figuring out how to make it work. So it is not always so obvious to make tech work. And at the same time, currently, tech propositions are becoming ever more complex. You can no longer innovate just in your garage and think that you have a successful product that everybody will embrace. You need teams, large teams. In fact, you need ecosystems. I actually take exception at the fact that you are an ecosystem. You are a function. You know, you are a part of an ecosystem, but procurement is not an ecosystem. To make tech work, we need ecosystems that go across many, many functions and parties, both internally as well as externally, with our partners, customers, suppliers, other stakeholders. But as soon as we need complex ecosystems, actually trouble starts. Because now we have to overcome all these silos, all this misalignment, both internally as well as externally. Internal factors could be, hey, I need new skills, or I need more people, or I need to make choices and focus, or to overcome the fact that the people in a legacy business don't want to change. I'm in a big company on the board. I see a lot of brilliance. There is absolutely a massive amount of resources. Yet sometimes people are misaligned in their individual goals versus the overall company goal. They may be worried about their job. If they take a risk, they may get blamed. Hence, they are not pursuing the big dream that perhaps they even want, right? So in the culture of a company, in a big company, there could be a lot of hurdles to overcome in order to make tech work. In some of the startups where I'm a board member and an advisor, I see great tech. It is absolutely fascinating and motivating. Tech that could make healthcare a lot better. But in one of those startups, the leadership is confused and is bickering with each other. And therefore, the 100 people that work for this startup, their line of action is not clear. In another startup, great tech, but no insight in how to scale the technology. In fact, it's too complex for the customers that they designed it for. So having the right people in your team is one thing. Understanding how you reach your customer is another thing. All these elements need to work, both the internal ones and the external ones. And external ones, of course, you are aware about some of the challenges in this very volatile world. ESG regulations, COVID, geopolitics, inflation, component scarcity. It's a jungle to overcome, and I'm sure in many of these battles you have been battling it out yourself. We all have scars about the environment that we work in. So the list of internal and external challenges can be quite long. That should not deter us, but at the same time we need to be realistic, because only when we see that reality into the eye can we overcome these challenges. The worst thing would be to just go very fast, but then to stumble along the way. So I emphasize in my speech here that we need to focus more on the how we will achieve the result. And the how is very much embedded in teamwork, both internal and external. Therefore, I put to you the premise that making tech work is about designing and operating a horizontal, end-to-end value chain, as opposed to putting a number of functions together that all pursue their own goal, yet are siloed. So functions like procurement or development or sales or operations or even enabling functions like finance, HR, somehow they all need to understand what their contribution to the overall value chain success is, or are they perhaps in the way of success? And for that we need courageous conversations, both internal but also with our partners. What do we expect from each other? What is your contribution to the end goal of customer success? Those conversations need to be had. And when we think and collaborate along that road to the customer, that end-to-end customer value chain, whether we are designing a product that in the end needs to be easy to use by the customer, or whether we are procuring components that need to be put together and delivered and installed, the weakest link of that value chain determines whether tech will work. An interesting question is, who is accountable for that orchestration of that value chain? Because we spend a lot of time on putting people in charge of all the silos. So who is the integrator of that value chain? People can say, well, you know what, Frans, that's the CEO. Good luck. Other people need to be integrating along that value chain throughout the organization. You could say it's the project manager, it's the procurement, it's the product manager, or maybe it's even a procurement leader. Right? But it will require people to think horizontally as opposed to vertically. It will require the bosses of these departments to think about their peers and how the handovers are, rather than, oh, I'm in charge of 100 people in my function, I'm a big person. Right? And I think that we are not valuing the integrator role enough. Right? And there we need to put more emphasis. And as David also said, that goes hand in hand with a culture discussion, because if we expect people actually to work more horizontally, beyond their own function, and to assume responsibility beyond their own function, because after all, it's about what others will do with my output, and that will determine success, then we are at the core of the conversation that to make tech work is in fact all about people and how people collaborate together and how people together strive for success. And yes, as David said, a shared goal is a good beginning. You know, a shared vision is essential, right? But to make all of that happen, we need leaders that inspire people, leaders that create common goals for folks, create clarity of what is to be achieved, but also an environment where empowerment and accountability and experimentation, as David said, will all happen. So making tech work, I put to you, is all about leadership. And in a world where there's a lot of change, a lot of risk, a lot of opportunity, the right leadership comes with a number of attributes, because the word leadership has all been flattened out. So the attributes that I like are, first of all, curiosity, secondly, ambition, thirdly, courage, and lastly, tenacity. And I'm going to unpack those 4 words a bit more. These leadership traits are important to me because I think they guide us as leaders on how to overcome challenges and then to come out winning. Now, I would like to shed some light on that by also talking about the transformation I led in Philips. In 2011, I was asked to become the CEO of Philips. In my analysis, Philips needed a reboot after some years of decline, in fact, stagnation. And the reboot took shape in the form of 3 big shifts. The first shift people talk about most, but in fact is the easiest, which is a portfolio transformation. A 20-30 billion company where we IPO'd the lighting division, we sold the television business, we sold the domestic appliances, and we said we're going to double down on healthcare technology. Why? Because we felt that our capabilities, innovation, would flourish in such a market where in fact there is a lot of unmet need, where there is more patients, not enough money, and actually tech can help make healthcare more productive. Over half the company got reshuffled in that sense. Yes, it was a very courageous undertaking, and it met with a lot of resistance, but also a lot of people that had opinions to say, you should not do this is the birthright, why are we getting out of lamps? Yeah, because, you know, today lamps don't break anymore, so the whole lighting business is all upside down, right? So we had to make a choice to something new. The second big shift is in fact what also David talked about, is to be relentlessly customer-centric. Many technologies in healthcare actually make healthcare more complex or make healthcare more expensive. Go to any doctor and ask them about their electronic medical record. And here the Americans among us would say, you know, Cerner or Epic. Everybody hates their electronic medical record, their EMR, right? And they spend most of their time on entering data. Data that never comes out anymore. So to make tech work for our customer is the right starting point. And for that, you need to have a relentless focus on your end customer needs. Many tech companies don't do that enough. They spend their time on talking and shaping the product as opposed to deeply understanding with humility what the customer needs are and what the hurdles for adoption are. At Philips, we adopted what we call the quadruple aim of healthcare. Better clinical outcomes, better patient and staff experience, and higher productivity. And if an innovation cannot meet the requirements of those 4 dimensions, it is not good technology. Forget it, it will not be adopted. The consequence of this solutions approach that we took was actually the third shift that we had to overcome. And that was a shift where we said, besides creating hardware, we also need to become an informatics company and a services company. Why? If you take an MRI scanner of your body, you get data. That data needs to be interpreted. Then that data needs to lead to a clinical assessment and a diagnosis. That's not about hardware, that's about information. Right? So information technology is crucial to really create an integrated healthcare platform. So that third transformation meant that from a hardware company we had to become a data and information company. And when you spend 2 billion on R&D, well, you have to make a big shift in where you spend your money and make choices about that. So 3 big transformations, and I agree it never stops. The transformation is huge. There will always be resistance to such transformation. You will have to make choices that will not make you necessarily popular. People will have to change their ways. Now, I agree that if people see why that is necessary, and it is a compelling vision, people are prepared to stand up and to reach for the sky and to come out of their comfort zone. The transformation of Philips was a success. Some of you may say, well, he's saying that. Well, I would say up till 2011, 2021, and then we hit a brick wall. And I will come back to what happened then. But up to 2021, we saw the revenue in healthcare double, our profitability double, the valuation of Philips reached 50 euro. Customers enjoyed it, our people loved our purpose. So by many dimensions, this was a successful transformation. It was hard, but motivating, because it was purposeful. It created line of sight to a better future. And that's what gets us out of bed in the morning. That is what gets the best out of people, because people in the end say, you know, I do this because I want to leave some impact in the world. And that will make people overcome challenges. Now, in 2021, Philips hit a wall as a consequence of a big recall. A recall of one of our products, of which we had produced 10 million units. It's a product to treat sleep apnea. I'm not going to say much about the recall, also for legal reasons, except that I can say it was a product design issue. A product design issue, in fact, the wrong choice of material, of a very low-cost material. And as procurement leaders, you would have been involved in such a process. I express my compassion for the patients and for the doctors, because such a recall is terrible. But it also shows that an error can sit deep down in an organization, in a small piece that you have no awareness of. And that means then that making tech work is also about understanding the details and the standards and doing the right thing at every level of the company, so that people take responsibility for what is supposed to be a design that is for a design for excellence. Besides internal challenges and transformation needs of a company, along the way of trying to get to success, we are of course also faced with external challenges. Things that are not in your own control. Things that happen to you that you are not accountable for. Just take a few that I have experience with, that hit us in the face in a way. The invasion of Russia in the Ukraine. Philips has a big presence in Russia, as well as in the Ukraine. Or the China 2025 manufacturing strategy that basically says China wants to do local for local by 2025 and favor local companies. Well, I tell you, when you have a 2 billion business in China, that has a consequence. Or component shortages. Post-COVID, we all had to face massive component shortages. And how do you overcome that? And speaking about COVID, let me just give you an example of what came our way. This must have been around March 2020, when Italy was dealing with all the sick people. In fact, the whole world, there were millions of people that had to be treated in hospitals. And the phone was ringing all the time. We need more ventilators, we need more patient monitors. The US government was threatening the Defense Production Act, right, to force all production to go to the US only. So what do? We took a courageous decision, a very courageous one, to say we're going to quadruple production in 3 months' time. That was in the middle of a lockdown. You could say that's sheer impossible, but we succeeded in this. Now, why did we succeed in it? It was very motivating. It was a very clear objective. Everybody said, I get it, what is expected from me, and I'm going to stand up to make this challenge happen. That was the case inside of the company, but also outside. Vendors stood up. KLM stood up with an air bridge. Contract manufacturers rose to the occasion. Everybody did. Together we pulled it off because there was clarity of purpose, alignment, trust, empowerment, but also people taking accountability. So overcoming internal and external challenges, my friends here, it requires people. Teams of people, multidisciplinary teams of people, both inside and outside of the company. Now, who brings these people together? That's, in fact, leaders. And I'm not talking about CEOs, I'm talking about people in the organization that stand up and say, I'm a leader, and I will make this happen. Now, many people equate leadership with leading a function. And I have argued to you that leadership, in fact, is about making the dots connect, making the value chain work, so that people can work with velocity and effectiveness in order to get to success. So I'll close off by saying that it will require us as leaders to lead with curiosity, ambition, courage, tenacity. Curiosity because otherwise we will not discover new innovations and change. Ambition because if we do not dream and reach for the moon, you will not achieve much. Courage because there will always be resistance along the way. And tenacity because the road to success faces many, many hurdles and requires continuous improvement. In fact, what David said, experimentation, so that we get it right eventually. This is not an easy call to action. It focuses on the how. I guarantee you, when you focus on the how, you'll get more success. I wish you a lot of success on your own leadership journey and a great conference. Thank you.